beginning a new assignment, doing some teaching in Canada.
Yeah, well, my old friend Steve Kirby. You know Steve Kirby?
I do. Steve is a dynamite bassist. I heard him a couple years ago play with Mel Martin, and
Mm-hmm.
wonderful man.
Yeah, he's a really special guy. He contacted me almost a year ago and said, "Hey, listen, we've got an opening in the saxophone chair up here. Would you like to come up to Winnipeg and interview for the position?" I said, "Sure." He came up here 10 years ago. This is one of the most amazing cultural contributions I've seen anybody do in recent years. It really blows my mind. There was very little in the way of jazz here. There was not much of a jazz program at the college, as far as I understand, at the University of Manitoba. His wife, Annalisa, who they knew each other from Manhattan School of Music, she's a vocalist. She's from Calgary. And there is a guitar player here who was here at that time named Larry Roy. And those three basically built this program, and he got the funding, and through sheer force of will said, "I'm going to do it." You know, and Steve's just that kind of guy that he can, you know, he can just do it. He can just kind of power through it and have the energy and the belief, and also the experience and the knowledge to be able to do it. One of the first things I learned about him when I came up last summer for the jazz camp is I didn't know that he had a preaching background, but it definitely came through. The way I met Steve was we were sitting on the train one day, and he was looking at me, and he recognized me. I didn't realize that we were both at Manhattan School of Music together, and we got to talking, and we sat down in the cafeteria at Manhattan School of Music, and we immediately became friends. And he had some of the greatest stories of anybody I've ever met in my life. I mean, he was a guy, he's about 10 years older than me. He'd really seen some things. He'd been in the military. He'd been a boxer at a high level. I mean, he's huge. He's like a tree trunk. He's like 6'5", has this incredible athletic background, and, you know, had dedicated his life to music. And we spent about, I don't know, a couple of years hanging out at lunch and getting to know each other. And then we'd only seen each other a few times in the interim. And some of the people that he's brought up here, George Colligan was here for a while. He was a great pianist. Jimmy Green, a good buddy and great saxophonist, was here. And currently Quincy Davis on drums. He brought Quincy. Derek Gardner, who's great trumpet player. Derek and I knew each other in New York a little bit, as Quincy and I did. And then Derek and I were on Harry Connick's band I guess like maybe 99 into 2001 or so. So he's got us from New York. He has Larry Roy is a great guitar player. And one of George Colligan's former students, Will Bonis, won the competition to take over as the jazz piano teacher. He's a great player. I think he's only 26 or something. And so, yeah, there's a wonderful program here, and it's a little different. Canada culturally is a little different. Winnipeg, Manitoba culturally also has its own stuff. There's a lot of French influence here, which I didn't know coming up. There's a lot of Mennonite influence, I think, in the culture, and that's been interesting. People are super nice. I mean, it's just, you know, like the nicest, friendliest group of people you would ever want to meet. And it is early March, and it is still very cold, and there are giant mounds of snow. So that's a little different. I think you told me it's about 65 out in Arizona right now.
Well, I'm in Arizona, and we were sitting outside on the porch. It's about 60 something out here. But John, I wanted to ask you, first of all, how many students in the program, and paint a portrait for me of the kind of students who are participating in the program.
Well, I think that the students are quite diverse. I think, one thing I wanted to mention, it's funny, you call your show The Hang. We have a Wednesday night weekly jam session that we also call The Hang. And we have former students, we have members of the Winnipeg Symphony to come down and hang out with us, and it's a great cultural city in that way, but I just wanted to mention that kind of correlation with the two names. The student body is really diverse here. One of the things that I appreciate about Canada and this school in particular is there's a real emphasis on awareness of indigenous issues, of Native folks up here, First Nations people, which is what we call in America Native Americans. Here they call First Nations people. I really appreciate that just from an overall school standpoint. From the jazz program, I want to say it's about, I think we have between 40 and 50, so it's a relatively small and intimate program. Student body is very diverse. We have people from South America. I have a student that wants to come from Japan. We had auditions recently. We had a lot of folks that came up from the States. And one of the reasons, Brett, that we've got this diversity and this interest in the program is, if I do say so myself, I think this is certainly, if not the best, one of the best jazz faculties in Canada. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think it's overall the best jazz faculty at any college in Canada. And college here is literally about 1/10 of what it is in the States, the cost of it. And so, particularly if you're a Manitoba resident, but even if you're coming from outside the country, it's about 20 or 25% of what you'd pay at a lot of the big name jazz schools. Now, a lot of those schools are great, and I've taught there, and I'm happy to teach there, and they're great programs and all of that, but I love being able to say to a student, you're not going to go $200,000 in debt to go to this college. And that was something that I really liked very much about the program when I started to learn about it.